distinguished to be led by Dr. Sudarshan Jain. He is the Secretary General of IPA, and he has been former MD of Abbott. And we have Dr. S.D. Gupta, who is the Chairman of IIHMR University. He is PhD in epidemiology from Johns Hopkins and a very renowned public health professional. He is currently also guiding the government of Rajasthan in coping with this pandemic. So welcome, sir. Welcome, Sudarshan ji. Welcome, S.D. Gupta ji. Then we have Gauri Chaudhary ji, who was recently written a very interesting book in the pharmaceutical industry, and she will also be sharing about the pharmaceutical industry and also about the research work while she has done her book. So welcome, Gauri ji. Then we have Dinesh Agarwal ji, who is joining us from Hong Kong. He is a renowned finance expert, chartered accountant by profession, and he will be sharing that what kind of different insights we can have in this difficult time. And then we have Soumitra ji, who is a renowned and global HR leader. He has been in leadership positions across the globe, including Compaq, Dell, Schneider Electric, just to name a few. We will be sharing because we are going to have many different kind of challenges, work from home, performance measurement, how to inspire the workforce, how to manage the stress, and so on. And then we have our own Dean of the School of Pharma, Dr. Saurabh Banerjee. He will be sharing his insight on the pharmaceutical industry and also will be summing up the whole discussion. And I am Dr. Pankaj Gupta. I am President of IIHMR University. So a very, very warm welcome to all of you once again. I know that IIHMR University is a leading university in the area of healthcare management. And we have done many research which has defined the whole course of public health and guided many governments, including the state government and the central government, in creating innovative and impactful public policies and the public health systems and governance. And we have done more than 800 research projects. We have a School of Health and Hospital, Public Health. We have a School of Pharmaceutical Management, and we have a School of Development Studies. And we are also a collaborative partner with the Johns Hopkins, where we conduct a collaborative program of the Masters in Public Health. So without taking further time, I'd now like to request the Honorable Chairman, Dr. S.D. Gupta ji, to share his views about the current public health challenges and how the industry, and in particular the pharmaceutical industry, how we should respond. So over to you, Dr. S.D. Gupta ji.
Thank you all the honored speakers in this webinar for joining us. And I would like to welcome and thank all the participants who have joined this webinar. Well, what I am going to do briefly, because this webinar is on pharmaceutical industry, but I come from public health and epidemiology. Let me give you some flavor of what is going around in the world and in India. Globally now we have reached about 2.25 million cases around the world of this COVID, and number of deaths has reached 100,000, 154,000, some odd numbers. And very good thing is about 25% of the corona patients have recovered. And earlier it was China, and then it was Italy, and then Spain, and now it is United States. So the epicenter was first in China. It was the place where it originated. I don't want to get into how this started from China. Some people say this is seafood market. Some people say it is the laboratory. Anyway, So from China, it traveled to Italy and to Europe, and Europe became an epicenter of this pandemic. And later on, this epicenter moved to United States. You'll be happy to know that this pandemic is getting slightly flattened now, but United States is still reporting cases. I'm very happy to share that Italy, Spain, UK, Germany, France, no case reported today. But in US, yes, there have been cases that are reported. Interestingly, in China and in South Korea, new cases have been reported. Interesting thing that we need to know is that India has very low number of cases. People get surprised that why we have low number of cases. Some people argue that we have not done enough testing. Person like me say this is early interventions that the government of India and the states strong response to this pandemic has really blunted it to become a real outburst of the cases in this country. So in India, we are still around 15,000 cases. We are likely to touch 15,000 today, and about 486 deaths that have occurred. Interesting thing to understand is that the mortality rate in the global average is 6.85%, whereas in India, we have been able to keep mortality rate very low to 2.5%. Why this has happened, we need to really understand more about this disease. We still see this as a black box, and not much is known about the disease and also the virus. We are trying to characterize this virus. Only in 4 countries, this virus could be isolated, and it has been characterized. And you all know there are at least 9 mutations have taken place right from starting from China, where it started its journey. It's mutated 9 times while it reached India. Yet the basic antigenic character remains same. The protein molecule which is around, which looks like spikes, is still retained. Therefore, it is still virulent. It is still contagious and can really suppress immunity in the human body. What next I have to say is that in India, Kerala, the things started with Kerala, and number of cases in Kerala swelled up like anything. But then it was Maharashtra, and Maharashtra is still on the top. Fortunately, today, most of the Indian states have reported no new case. So in all practical terms, India is now flattening the curve of the COVID disease. And I come from Rajasthan. So Rajasthan, it was very well controlled, but because of some religious congregations all over India, and Rajasthan was also involved in it. Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi, Maharashtra, the swell up of the cases occurred because of that religious congregation, and maybe mass exodus of people from various industrial cities and big towns. So this is what it is, the situation. जरा धीरे बोलो भाई, धीरे धीरे. Oh, I just hold on. अरे, my granddaughter came in. So we are very happy with this, and only 3 states, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, and West Bengal, have reported cases. Rest of other states have not reported a new case since then. So it's a very happy situation. Being part of the policy and strategy part and implementation of those in Rajasthan, being member of advisory committee of the government of Rajasthan and part member of task force for lockdown exit strategy. So I had to deal with the epidemic from very near, and you might have heard about a place Ramganj in Jaipur, and that was a big challenge for us. I'm happy to share with you Ramganj, which contributed around 80% of all cases. No cases reported from Ramganj today. So I'm very happy with this that things are getting better, and India's response to COVID pandemic has been monumental. I must say that. Let Indians take pride in this, that we have become a model around the world, that how India could. But my worry is that Africa is likely to be the new epicenter of COVID, and it is estimated that it may be around 3 lakh cases in Africa, and if that happens, it will be a severe beating that COVID is likely to cause to poor African nations. So that is our fear. Coming to, since this is pharmaceutical industry webinar, I must say I come from epidemiology, and this is the right time with the pharmaceutical industry. Of course, it is under severe stress, like any other business. This morning I was listening to RBI governor, and he said it will be 9 trillion loss to economy all over the world, and India will also be facing this. And while all businesses face it, pharmaceutical industry is also one of those that will suffer. But what is required, what is very important is pharmaceutical industry has a very important role to play, especially, of course, we cannot develop new drug in such a short period of time, but try to test our old tested drugs for HIV and our endemic diseases like malaria and all that. Can they be useful? And it has been reported that antiretroviral drugs and hydroxychloroquine is quite effective. We may try some more medicines, and this may be possible. But I must say that there is really no treatment for COVID. And good thing is that about 90% of the cases, as we have seen in our state, are asymptomatic. From epidemiologic point of view, it is a serious situation to be asymptomatic, but from clinical point of view, it's fine. So asymptomatics are the real dangers. So what pharmaceutical industry should look at, besides the losses that it might incur, but get into research and development in testing our old medicines into new situations. I think they should invest into testing new drugs, these drugs into the COVID. I also would like to say that we need to expand our scope from clinical trials to pharmacoepidemiology, because it is not only testing the efficacy of medicines, but it is also necessary to look at the access, availability, and quality of services, and universal health coverage. It should also look at the drug evaluation. It should evaluate the medical devices, their cost, and their accessibility, pricing policies. These are all very, very important that pharmaceutical industry need to look at. And the methods of pharmacoepidemiology have become very relevant. And I would suggest that it should be very judiciously used and promoted. The new discipline will be pharmacoepidemiology now in pharmaceutical industry. I'll stop here. And I'd like to thank Dr. Pankaj Gupta and all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very good. We really appreciate it. And now I'll request Sudarshan ji to please share his views. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Pankaj Gupta, and thank you, Dr. S.T. Gupta. He has been the pioneer in the country on epidemiology, and the insight what we got on the epidemiological part of the situation was very insightful for me. He has been doing great work over the years, and I would also like to congratulate IIHMR to take this initiative, because this is the initiative of the hour. I'm very fortunate also to be part of this panel along with all of you. So what I like to do is I will take forward from where Dr. S.T. Gupta left the role of pharmaceutical industry. Just setting the context, is the biggest lockdown in the history, longest lockdown in the history. I couldn't imagine. I came to Bombay 40 years back as a migrant worker. I couldn't imagine that Bombay can survive with train services not working for last 41 days, but still we are surviving and working from home. It is a great advantage of the S.D. Gupta to hear the voice of granddaughter, which is very, very hardly there during these kind of days. So we get the time to have with the family together. There are three issues which we are talking when we are dealing with COVID. Unlike other parts, there is the issue of science. We don't understand the virus, and that's why the research becomes important. How does virus multiply, virus load, multiple factors. Issue of sustainability, both life and livelihood. That's the equation which we are dealing with. Yes, you have to save the spread. At the same time, you have to maintain livelihood. And there are a lot of social issues. Fortunately, in this panel, we have got the advantage of discussing all the three issues: science, sustainability, and social issues, 3S I call it. I will focus more on pharma industry because there it is where I belong. I'm also fortunate, Dr. S.D. Gupta, to be associated with this institute over a period of time, and Dr. Agarwal, where I have the privilege to be associated here. So all of us know India is known as pharmacy of the world. We contribute 20% of the world's supply of medicine. Every third tablet in US is sold from India. Every fourth tablet in UK is sold from India. 60% of vaccine contribution comes from India. So we are the vaccine makers of the world. Every third child in the world gets vaccine from India. We contribute $10 billion to foreign earnings in this country. When I joined the industry 35 years back, we used to import 90% of the medicine. But today, 95% of the products are made in India. That's the pride of this industry. And I would like to convey to all the students who are part of this seminar that pharmaceutical industry has done a great job, and IHMR is at the center place as far as this industry is concerned. When this epidemic was announced, as far as lockdown was announced, there were four questions we were dealing with. Is how do we sustain the supplies of medicine in this country? That was the first question. Second is, how do we continue to supply not only to India, but around the world? Because we are the pharmacy of the world. How do we take care of that? Third question was, there are tariff and non-tariff barriers which are being created in this situation because everyone wants to protect first for their country. And how does India deal with that situation? Because there were voices in India that hold the medicine in India, don't supply anywhere else in the world. And bureaucrats, everyone were acting on it. And the fourth point which Dr. Gupta raised is, can India, beyond the pharmacy of the world, can it be research center? And can it move forward as far as this area is concerned? So these were some of the questions we were raising. And we say that we have to reimagine the role of the pharmaceutical industry going forward. And we have made the recommendation last week to the government of India. And I will say at this moment, Dr. Gupta has been part of many committees. At this moment, the government consults IPA on every issue. And I have never seen this kind of collaboration which has been there. Government has been listening, government respond to everything, whatever we say. If we say something in the evening, you can see in the notification. So come the day when the notification was announced, pharma industry was not declared as an essential industry. We approached the government and the industry was declared as essential industry. We were at 10% production around 21 days back. Today we are at 55% production. We didn't know how do we make our products reach. Getting workers in the factory was a big issue because there is COVID epidemic. How do you get the worker? And I was in dilemma at that day because yes, we can start the production, but the government was saying that how do you get your product moving? And there was no way. I disturbed Dr. Agarwal, who is our founder as far as IIHMR is concerned, and he knows about transportation. And we said we were working with Maharashtra government, and we said that let's harness all the areas, whether it is Transport Association, whether it is academic institution, whether it is Air Cargo Association. Let's get everyone together. And what we have been trying to do, and I will say it is a great opportunity, it's a great time when everyone has come together to make sure that medicines are available to the people. At this moment, there are no reported shortage in this country. All the associations, all the stakeholders, great example, Dr. S.D. Gupta in Jaipur, all of us are working together with the government right in the morning. Secretary DOP called us up. Secretary NPPA called us up, making sure where is the problem. So one great area is making sure that the products are available. Second area is the question of that API supplies. In this situation, we were sure that China, we used to depend on APIs. But what each country has to do, there cannot be one source where you can be available of your product. And that's the post-COVID situation, that there has to be diversified supply chain. And the government recently has announced API policy, encouraging the domestic production of API because healthcare security is important. That's the second point. Third point, Dr. Gupta talked about repurposing the drugs. And India is playing a very important role. India is at the center stage as far as that area is concerned. We started with lopinavir and ritonavir in Jaipur. First trial began. Although later on in extensive trial, we found out that it doesn't work. Then it was hydroxychloroquine, and Mr. Trump announced in the TV, and there was speculation of the demand around the world. And IPA was asked, how do you predict the demand in this kind of situation? Now, it is very difficult. A drug which is used for malaria, 3 million tablets per month, and now everyone says, can you make 100 million tablets? But what we work together, so the government put the full stop, Trump calling Modi for this, but ultimately through dialogue, through discussion, Indian companies responded to the challenge. And now, once again, we have said that Indian companies will supply to the world hydroxychloroquine. That's a great example of global cooperation and solidarity. And India has demonstrated, India is at the center stage, and Modi's government demonstrated. I'm not political, but at this particular moment, the government responded fast. So we are playing a very important role in repurposing of the drugs. We are also talking of the concept of transfusion therapy, plasma transfusion therapy. So there are a number of work which is going on, and India is at the center stage of the work which has been happening. The next point, fourth point, is vaccine. Every third vaccine, every second vaccine, every third child in the world is vaccinated from India. And India has great advantage in that area. But China has got better understanding of virus because it started there. US is doing a lot of work, and 3 Indian companies, they are all IPA members. Zydus is leading the initiative. Then we have got Bharat Biotech and Serum. Hopefully, we should get onto the vaccine. Very difficult to say animal trials are happening because unless we have got vaccine, unless we have treatment, we don't know how long this battle will continue. But Indian companies are playing a very important role as far as the whole thing is concerned. The fourth aspect, which is very, very important, is global supply from India. And that's why continuity of production becomes very important, continuity of transportation becomes important. How do we continue to supply medicine? Like say every day, we have got call from US, we have got call from every part of the world, making sure that how do we make product? WHO we were calling yesterday. Everyone wants to know in transportation challenge, how do we make the products available? The next point is diagnostics and ventilators. We don't have those, but many of the companies are rising above the challenge. And the companies like Mahindra's, because they make cars, but they can make ventilators also. Tata's, they've got into the game. So when the crisis happens, everyone comes together to a higher purpose. So some of the companies in healthcare, sanitizers, they started producing because how do we come together to take care of the whole care of the pricing of the supplies. And the last point is we also realize that healthcare, where we have been spending only 1% of GDP, we need to spend more because that is going to be the priority. I will say at this moment that all of us are fortunate that we are part of healthcare industry. I'm also privileged to be part of IIHMR and have the interaction with Dr. S.D. Gupta, faculty, Dr. Pankaj Gupta. It is always an inspiration to me to be there. And I congratulate all the students of IIHMR who are joining the healthcare world at this stage, because it is a moment of pride. It's a moment where it's satisfying every day to make a difference to the health of the nation and health of the world. Thank you very much, Pankaj.
Thank you very much, sir. Your presentation was so nice and so enlightening to us. And we also would like to thank you for being our board member, and your guidance and support has always been so valuable to us. So many thanks once again. Now I will request Gauri ji. She has been the author of the perfect pill, and to share her presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. And thank you, everyone. It's indeed my pleasure to be part of this esteemed platform. It was really insightful to hear Dr. S.D. Gupta and understand the epidemiology and the insights into it. I mean, indeed, it was very insightful. Listening to Mr. Jain is always a pleasure. It's really a moment of pride, the way he said, the way Indian pharma industry has stood up to the challenge, the way our country has managed the whole situation is wonderful. These are difficult times, like everyone said, and they are unimaginable. But very interestingly, some wonderful things have churned out. I will not speak a lot much about the catastrophic impact this virus has had on the world as well as on the industry, but I would rather focus on what good things that came out of this virus. I mean, some time back, just to look at Indian pharma industry, there were a lot of questions being asked. In fact, there were some books written about the quality of Indian medicines and whether it's really up to the par. And if we see today, the way pharmaceutical industry from India has stood up to the challenge and has actually provided medicines not only for the country but also for the world. So there are no more questions. Basically, there are a lot of requests. And listening to Mr. Jain was so delightful when I hear that how Indian industry is actually moving forward in terms of research and development. I was also listening to some of the media reports which actually say that the vaccine that might come out for COVID-19, there's a good chance that it would come from India. So today, probably it is a Y2K moment for pharma industry. And all of us who are part of this industry can be really very proud for the reason, the way we are contributing. Like in the Y2K, the millennial issue, where India showed its expertise in the IT field. It was the Indian engineers and the computer engineers who actually showed world the way. Probably this is the moment for pharma industry to show the way to the world. Like Dr. Gupta said, that we have some wonderful models of management, maybe as a result of which we have 2.5% mortality as against some of the higher numbers in Western countries. So I'm sure India is going to study the model of this country in management of epidemic. And I'm hopeful that we'll come out with good learnings out of this. So very interestingly, not only the pride that one has at this moment, so all of us students, the professionals, the veterans, the experts feel extremely good about the way we handled the world scenario. But having said that, this particular virus has also helped us learn a lot. I mean, one is that yes, it has caused catastrophe, but what has it also done is to got the best out of the industry in every field. For example, for last 5 decades, we were looking at different ways of handling this healthcare ecosystem. But this revolution that happened in terms of e-revolution that fundamentally changed how doctors, patients, and the pharma industry coordinated and networked and found solutions. For example, for 1 decade, we were talking about telemedicines, we were talking about video chat, and it actually 30% of the face-to-face consultation, if gets converted into telemedicine or video medicine, they say India could save huge amount of money. Some figures also talk about $10 billion being saved, but it wasn't happening. And suddenly there has been tsunami of e-consultation. And like Mr. Jain said, we have to thank our government because the quick response government came out with. Government actually laid forward guidelines for e-prescription, for e-consultation, MCI, Niti Aayog, all of them came together and saw to it that no patient of chronic illness, probably a diabetic patient or a cardiac patient, would suffer in this period. All the platforms, in fact, platforms of video consultation, platforms of teleconsultations came on board and saw to it this conversations between patients and doctors happened. The pharmacies or the e-commerce, it itself also got into the action mode. There were a lot of issues. There were last mile delivery issues. There were issues with respect to not having, entry into certain areas. And despite that, government and the pharmacies came together. In fact, very innovative models were applied. Some of the places, the last mile delivery happened through Uber and Ola, so where the companies tied up with them. At some places, it also happened that the grocery chains help people, help companies reach to patients and deliver those most important medicines. So that was another wave of e-pharmacy that happened, which was finding difficult to really enter into the country. Third very important thing happened, and which happened more into marketing. A lot of people started asking initially, particularly pharma companies, that how can we not let medical representative meet doctors? And it so happened that when medical representatives started working from home, actually they could deliver a lot more value and relevance to the medical field. There were some mistakes, of course, not that every initiative worked. Some of the companies did talk to doctors out of the context, but there are huge and tremendous learnings coming out of it. So when those communications were about partnering with doctors, when pharmaceutical brands started partnering, talking, supporting, and helping this entire ecosystem of doctor, patients, and pharma world, some beautiful learnings came out. So there are tremendous learning, I mean, every aspect of it. But to cut the whole thing short, if there are students here, I would tell the students to do loads and loads of projects now. This is the time probably we learned a lot more. That probably these 5 weeks have been so insightful in terms of how we would do business, how digitalization would help, how remote access to medicine and consultation would happen. This learning is going to be phenomenal. And it would be wonderful for students to get into the market, find later, whenever it is available, get into the market, understand what worked, understand what did not work. Suddenly we'll realize that as an industry, we have created hundreds of models, we have implemented them, we have tested them, and now we know which of these models are working, which are not working. And students can play a very important role in this entire game because they are the ones who can actually bring industry also together to understand it. And we as all pharma professional must understand and share our practices, arrive at the best possible model so that we all share what is working. In the end, any pharmaceutical brand works only when doctors win, only when patients win, and together we contribute to society in terms of science and of course sustainability and social growth. So this is the time probably to learn maximum, see what is happening around us and share it with the world. So all the best to everyone, students and every pharma professional. This is what I think. This is the time to learn, grow and share. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gauriji. Your talk was very enlightening, and the way you have shared about another aspect of taking it as an opportunity and what can be done. This was very insightful, and also I'm happy to inform you that many of our students have already engaged in a lot of projects. And on faculty, we have created different cohorts of research projects, both during COVID and also post-COVID. The whole, the research is doing very well at this time. So we'll be sharing more details later. So now I'd like to request Dr. Das, Soumitra Kumar Das ji. At this moment, can you hear me, Soumitra?
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Gupta.
That these days we're talking about a lot of things about the work from home, the new way of uh, measuring and managing the performance, and many other host of the issues. So we'd like to hear on that, and then I will come to Dinesh. Over to you, Sean.
So yeah, thank you, Dr. Gupta. It's an honor to be part of this distinguished panel, and it's been a great learning listening to Dr. Gupta, Dr. Jain, and to Dr. Gauri Chaudhary. There's been and the distinguished panelists have already outlined the state of the pharma industry and the outlook for the industry. And Dr. Chaudhary also talked about the advantages of the things that students should be taking during this time, and she kind of hinted a very important thing, and that's the academia industry kind of connect, and this is going to be very important, and I'm going to touch upon it very briefly. So I will touch upon a few simple themes that are emerging now in the new world of work, and throw a little bit of light on how it is impacting industry. And I'm sure there are ways and means that we can actually keep on evolving in the way that we are managing these kind of things. However, one thing that I want to actually impress or emphasize is that whenever I do webinars, or I'm talking to my fellow HR professionals, or I'm talking to managers and people in different organizations, the one thing that keeps on popping up is that when are we going to get normal? And how do we manage this time till we become normal? Right? So the mindset says that, okay, we are going back to the first week of January or the first week of February, when everything would be rolled back. People will go back to offices, they'll be traveling, airlines will be packed, hotels will be doing business. Okay, everybody will gather in the canteen. Now, my problem, this thing is that is not going to happen in a hurry, right? That's not going to happen in a hurry. Probably in maybe 6, 8, 9, 12 months, when there's a vaccine here and we are able to vaccinate most of the people, we will be back to what we call as normal, right? So till then, it's important for all of us to look at this entire situation from a different mindset, and it's better to align to the situation rather than oppose it, right? And if you align to it, the earlier the better it is for you to manage this, and that's why we're looking at a changing mindset. So I'm going to talk about three large things. Going to talk about talent. I'm going to talk about employee management, or what we call the employee journey or the employee life cycle in organizations. And I'm also going to talk about employee experience. Right. So you would have heard Dr. Gupta, Dr. Jain, Dr. Chaudhary talk about how we are proud of the pharma industry. Now, and I, as a layman, I understand that the country's integrity and the country's security is directly correlated to the state of healthcare in the country, and pharma industry is one of the pillars for that. Right? How well we do, how well we are kind of bolstering the effect of what we are doing in the pharmaceutical industry today is definitely going to help us ride this wave. So in a otherwise gloomy situation, pharma industry brings a ray of hope, and we are happy that in the world, everybody is looking towards India, and I echo Dr. Jain's this thing that we are actually one of the best in the business right now. Okay, so what is happening is that production is increasing, right? API, things will probably start getting in India. There's a boost that the pharma industry is kind of receiving. So all this is is coming to the fact that we have to start rethinking in terms of what we are doing with talent, the talent acquisition, the reskilling, the way that we are looking at our interaction with academia. Okay, all these things has to be looked at, right? So what do you do in terms of hiring? So for example, in older days, you walked into an organization in the reception, there'll be some 50 guys sitting here. Okay, guys, why are you here? Oh, we have come here to attend an interview. Right? Can you do that today? Can you say that I'm going to, kind of do a COVID testing for all the 100 guys who come in and sit in my reception to do an interview? So the HR guy would spend an entire day meeting 100 guys along with a operations person trying to select. Right? Do you have the kind of wherewithal, the resources to do it today? No. So we have to move into a different hiring pattern. Right? We'll talk about volume hiring in all this on this production facilities, and we have to do this using, say, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., etc. The basic concept of face-to-face recruitment will probably undergo a major change, right? So we have to go get all the workmen back. We have to inform a lot of people across different talent crucibles that, hey, we are hiring, okay, and come back, and we have to ramp up production. So how do you do that? And that's again communicating through a mobile app or something like that. Okay, so there's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of automation, and this is directly correlated to the change in mindset and how soon you can align yourself to the new ways of talent, right? Then the guy comes in, the person comes in. Now you do onboarding. Okay, onboarding also has to be in a distant format. Okay, and then you look at redesigning the workplace. How do you make your workplace COVID-19 compliant? Okay, how do you maintain distances? If you are in a factory, how do you make sure that people are maintaining those kind of protocols? All right. One of the things that might happen as a this thing is that the highly intensive, resource intensive factories of pharma are going to get automated. Okay, we are going to introduce a lot of robotics, a lot of automation, so that like in the automobile industry, a car kind of rolls out almost on its own. There could be production facilities that will ramp up now where there's a lot of automation. So there is a lot of focus on the IT part of it. Okay, and people are going to go into run into people are actually going to take advantage and leverage IT for production, supply chain, etc. And that is going to bring in another issue: the skill level of people now you're going to require in the factory. Okay, you have to upskill them. How do you do that? Again, through distant learning, skilling, etc. So there is a lot of thinking that has to go in from the human capital perspective. HR will play a very integral role in this, and you have to make sure that the senior people at the CXO level, people who are thought leaders like Dr. Gupta, Dr. Jain, you, Dr. Chaudhary, you are the ones who will lead this thoughts. Okay, this disruptive situation, to make sure that out of chaos emerges a lot of new opportunities for pharma. All right. Employee performance and productivity is also going to be an important thing. Most managers today I talked to said, "Oh, what is your opinion about whether employees are working or not?" Most of them say, "We don't think that they're putting in that 8 hours of work that they were putting in while they were office." Mindset again. They never bothered about whether that 8 hours they were actually working there or not. But 8 hours they were sitting in front of the managers, so it was assumed that they were working. But now they're not in front of the manager, so the assumption is that maybe they are not working. Okay, so these are mindsets. So performance. How do we look at remote performance monitoring? How do we look at productivity? Okay, and it's going to be important. And then comes the important part, guys. People who are working in production in the factory, and people whom you're asking to work out of home. How do you make sure that their compensation and benefits are kind of matching? Okay, this is also a time when you will relook at all those kind of things, because the industry itself will be under pressure for cost and for resource optimization. So there is again, a lot of work that needs to be done. Right? Keeping connected work from home employees. Okay, it will go to be another challenge. How do you collaborate? Here in office, if you wanted collaboration, collaboration was that call for a meeting, everybody goes to a meeting room, talk and come to a decision. Or you need a file signed or a paper signed, you just walk across to the person's desk, got it signed. You can't do that now. So what kind of collaborative platforms? How do you ensure this? How do people take, how do people quickly adapt to the collaborative platforms are important, right? The workforce will differentiate itself in all these kind of things, but at the end of the day, we are also looking at leadership. Okay, leadership is going to redefine itself in terms of competencies required. Okay, we will look at aspects like today: agility, flexibility, innovation, change management, resilience, ability to manage in ambiguity. All this is going to come out, and they're going to replace those earlier fancy ornamental competencies that usually industries depended on and did a lot of. You have to assess those also, and assessments can't be less long term. Assessment centers, development centers. You have to assess them on the fly because things are changing every day. The situation that you will encounter, all of us will encounter next week, may be totally different from what we thought we were going to encounter next week. Okay, if there's a resurgence in the virus, if there's a resurgence in the mortality rate, right, we are definitely going to rethink our options. So and when we come to engaging the employees, we have to talk about a hybrid model. Okay, engaging employees at home, engaging employees at the production facility, and so on and so forth. And then finally, we'll have to look at employee experience, and we're going to use technology for that. How do we create employee engagement? How do we create a great experience of people, right? Health and employee wellness is going to be important. Two aspects: curative and preventive. Okay, people who have been locked down for two months at home, okay, might show signs of distress when they come back to office, and you have to talk to them about how you're going to elevate those signs of distress. Preventive is currently right now people who are working out of office, who are not able to go out. How do you talk to them, coach and counsel them? So we are doing a lot of work. The question, therefore, I'll leave because we're running out of time, is that do we become a victim to this or do we become a player? Okay, we can choose to bemoan ourselves and all that, but in pharma, I think there is a huge amount of opportunity. Let us show the rest of the industries that we do not choose to be a victim, we choose to be players. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will rest my case. Thank you very much for Dr. Gupta for giving me an opportunity to be part of this distinguished panel, and I'm very proud of IIHMR for taking lead in doing this sort of webinars. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Homi. It was indeed very crisp and a very impactful presentation. Maybe I have some questions on this, and maybe I'll come to you later. So maybe I'll like to now request Dinesh.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think with the interest of time, I'll just directly get into the topic. Are you able to hear me, Pankaj? Fantastic. So just for the benefit of the audience, all the students, all the attendees, what have we covered in last 25, 30 or 40 minutes? We have covered three important aspects of factors of production and economics. We have covered labor, we have covered land, we have covered technology. The fourth important ingredient is capital, and that is what we need to cover in next 2 to 3 minutes. Capital forms the base, and in today's environment, I'm glad I'm the last speaker, because indeed capital should not receive the importance it has received in last several years. We have all been in rat races in life, but let's understand capital. You need capital to do all this. Even one coronavirus test is so expensive. So let's get on to the practicalities. You need funding for all this to happen. You need funding for the pharma sector to even even take birth. Forget about sustainability. So in this capital, I would phrase there are three expressions. It's called triple A word not coined by me: accessibility, affordability, and availability. Now, in terms of accessibility, government has done its side. So Jain has said it, they are massive, going all around. The budgets have provided very good allocations, 116,000 crores being allocated to, Prime Minister Jan Arogya Yojana. There are equal number of amount being also allocated to Poshan Abhiyan, or, focusing on nutrition values and all. Government side, the funding is happening. You need private sector to come up more with the capital now. And a food for thought for Jain and everybody. I did a quick maths before I got onto this meeting from Money Control. Top 100 companies in top 100 pharma companies in India as only have in total 40,000 crores of debt capital, which means they are very under levered as of now. So for all the students, if you're studying the capital structure, you can inherently think there is a massive opportunity for that debt capital to go up, which will also trigger a lot of expansion readily in the pharma space. That's an important ingredient, plus the certainty of cash flows which can happen. So an important aspect, capital from the government, from the private sector. And if I talk about the third leg, when you talk about capital, you need angel investors, or people like JNG and all senior members, to start creating an ecosystem where we have startup concept as well. I mean, I can imagine myself of a mobile application being able to connect to my doctor, being able to connect to my, my pharmacy shop, being able to connect to the allied services. So if the doctor tells me that I have a lung cancer, it should also immediately connect me to an insurance company which can insure me. So right from the pharmaceutical sector, the technology can play a role where it can really expand the horizon in all these spaces as well. So this is where I talk about accessibility. If the capital is easily accessible, then the entire value proposition becomes affordable. Because if I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm looking at these four factors of production: capital, labor, land, technology, capital has to be cheaply available to me. And to my mind, presently it is, because as I said, the debt capital of pharma companies is not high. So the weighted average cost of capital is significantly lower in substance. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is, again, sticking to the government in the COVID situation. I think government has gone all out in terms of helping. As I speak to you, the domestic manufacturing of bulk drugs has received specific incentives to the tune of 14,000 crores being set up for active production of APIs in the countries. Plus, most of the governments have been asked to set aside some specific land to allow these companies to enhance their API production capabilities. So government, private sector, if they all can come up from the funding perspective, which is the most important ingredient or factor of production, we can all win the virus altogether. I will take a rest here, Pankaji, given the sensitivity around timing here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Dinesh, thank you so much. Very short and sweet and very impactful. Thank you so much. So before I move on to Saurabh ji, I have just two questions, maybe to any of the panel. One is that these days you see that even from the Ayush Ministry, so they've been sharing a lot of guidelines about how to boost your immunity, and a lot of discussion is about the traditional Indian way, like eating this turmeric and other things, and Chavanprash, and also talking about this pranayama and other techniques. So I believe the government is also focusing a lot of attention on the prevention rather than cure. So maybe this is also a great opportunity for the pharma industry. So far, they have not been coming into the lot of wellness product or the preventive product, but more related to the cure-related product. So do you think that there is a great opportunity coming up, and also the little bit of ancient wisdom and ancient thing, Ayush, collaboration with Ayush, those kind of products, I think the writing is clear on the wall at this moment. That is one. And second, about the technology side, we know that there is a problem of fake drugs and other situations. So whether the use of technique like blockchain, can it make an impact? And if yes, then how the industry has to take a call on that. So maybe anyone, either Sudarshan ji or who would like to answer this question. I'm just sharing this to the panels.
I can take that up, Pankaj. the way I see blockchain helping is it can significantly help in the R&D space. For example, you and I, if we are doing R&D collaboratively, where blockchain as a concept can help at every stage of enhanced on incremental testing that you do versus I do, we can keep adding to that blockchain, and then everybody has a visibility on the progress that we have made. So what blockchain can do is bring the entire R&D community together, and through the technology, every incremental work can be reviewed, progressed, challenged, and enhanced at every value chain.
Sure. Sudarshan ji, would you like to share something at this stage? Or Gauri?
Yeah, your first question is very interesting. Modern medicine and the traditional medicine or Ayush kind of medicines have always existed in silos. But COVID-19 kind of epidemic, where no proven treatment is coming out, is actually telling the entire world to integrate these medicines. So be it yoga, be it interventional medicine, be it the medicine from food. For example, turmeric, which has curcumin inside it, has a huge potential to build immunity. And even head of CIPLA, Dr. YK Yusuf, in his Hamid, in his report, has actually said that use all of this. Just don't depend on one kind of medicine, but build your immunity. Have inhalations, do steaming, and all that is going to work. So, head of pharma, father of pharma world, actually coming out and saying that integrate every learning that you have, integrate every medicine you have, is a huge step forward. And I think modern medicine, traditional medicine, at some point has to come together. And like Dinesh ji said, that yes, we all can study from each other. That little incremental learning from one source can add to the rest of the sources. Whether you use technology of blockchain, you use technology of common communication, use technology of publishing your work, all that is going to help us in a big way. So it's a very important point, and I'm sure the government of India, by promoting Ayush, has already taken the first step.
So just to add to that,
Basically,
Gauriji, the other point is also making people aware of all this. Turmeric का advantage कॉमन आदमी तक पहुंचना चाहिए। आज जैसे इफ यू हैव सीन, आज मैंने चाट का एक एग्जांपल लिया। आप अगर लक्ष्मी मिष्ठान भंडार जाते हैं चोरी बाजार में, राजस्थान जयपुर में, एक चाट खाने के लिए भी, the amount of raw spices that they put, which is coriander or turmeric. The idea of creating a chart was that that's a self-sufficient food on a daily basis. The small ingredient portion, you get a lot of charts together, and enhances your immunity. So the messaging has to go to the grassroots level as well in terms of this natural therapy.
basically, to add to what has been said here, there are two aspects: is the wellness product.
Oh, sure.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two aspects which we are talking about. Is one is the treatment aspect, which pharma industry deals with, but there is an aspect of Ayush, there is an aspect of yoga, and if you hear Mr. Prime Minister himself talking about it, that during these times, yoga, meditation has got a great role. And if you see many of the houses, they put the videos today, do exercise and yoga. That's a very, very important aspect. And also Ayush, if I ask ICTMR, there is a separate group which has been set up under Dr. YK Gupta, and they are constantly evaluating the products. But what is important in these areas is there is a scientific validation which is important, because everything cannot be asked as treatment or wellness unless it is validated by science. So that is very, very important. Second is there will be a lot of use of technology. We are talking of pooling of resources, we are talking of artificial intelligence, we are talking of blockchain, whether it is clinical trial, whether compressing the time of drug development, whether cost of drug development. And what we are raising is the fundamental question is pooling of patents and getting away from the patent thing, which is 20-year patent. The question will be raised in today's world is, suppose if the vaccine is developed, should it be shared around the world? Abbott has developed 2-minute test. How fast you can share the technology and get everyone doing it. So these are the fundamental questions which will start being raised post-COVID situation.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Saurabh.
Yeah, I'm audible, sir.
Yeah,
I'm audible.
yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, sir. So it was also great learning, and uh, our all eminent and distinguished speakers have covered almost all the landscape of the pharmaceutical industry, and we have covered all the aspects of the related to the pharma industry. So right from the research and development, we have touched on access and affordability part. We have touched on to the pharmacoepidemiology part of the pharmaceutical industry. Then we also covered a very important aspect of supply of pharmaceuticals. Then we have also touched on to the topic of vaccines and the API manufacturing. We touched the HR point of the pharma regarding the e-consultation also, the talent acquisition, redesigning the workspace, and we have also touched on to the funding and the capital part of the pharmaceutical industry. So we have touched all the important aspects of the industry. I would like to, sir, make a special mention here of a very important industry which the Indian pharmaceutical industry deliberated in a very important aspect, that is the molecular diagnostic industry. So currently, the molecular diagnostic industry is the total market of global market is around 40 to 45 billion industry US dollars, and the point of care devices just touched about 12 to 13 billion US dollars. So Indian molecular diagnostic industry, you know, uh, reacted to this COVID situation in a very great manner. And I would like to special make a mention of MyLab Discovery Solutions, who came up with the India's first, rapid diagnostic test, which was approved by Drug Controller General of India and validated by the National Virology Institute. So this is a very commendable part of the Indian molecular diagnostic industry. They were able to supply this particular diagnostic kit in just 1200. The packages is 1200, and it could test 100 samples. And the remarkable thing about this in vitro diagnostic test is that it gives the test in just 2.5 hours. So I would suggest the people who are listening to this particular webinar that the molecular diagnostic industry is an amazing industry and a very, very futuristic industry. So explore this molecular diagnostic industries for the people who want to explore the pharmaceutical industry. This is the only thing which I want to share with the audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, Saurabh, can you hear me?
Yeah, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay. So now, if there is any comment any other panelists would like to share, otherwise we take questions. Can we share the questions?
Hitendra? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we have questions now. So the first question is, what if the China stops API that is needed for the manufacture of medicines? Why the government is not starting production of API in India? So this, Sudarshan sir, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, so basically, if you see, we have dependence on China. Can everyone hear me? Can Dr. Gupta, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, we
Can
can,
you?
we can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
So that was a basic issue which this COVID thing exposed. We have been talking of a very high dependence on China. So just to quote the figures, in 1990, we used to have dominance of APIs in China. 70% of the global API market used to be made in India. But over the years, China gave a lot of benefit, free land, half the rate of the power, interest cost 4% compared to 12 to 13% here. And the cost of production in China went down to 25 to 30% lesser than India. And then they started dominating the API market. Government realized that position. It is not the question of we don't have the technology. Government has announced 4 weeks back a policy where incentive of more than 14,000 crores have been announced, and Indian companies will be responding to create healthcare security in the country by producing APIs in India. We have got the technology, we have got the scale, we have got all the knowledge, and we at IP have committed that over a period of time we will become self-reliant as far as API is concerned.
Okay, thank you, sir. This question was asked by Abhijit Mohanty, and now there is a question by Krishna Agarwal. After COVID-19, is it possible that pharma industry will focus on the research, mainly on antimicrobial drugs?
Yes, we are doing, like if you see the first task at this moment is repurposing the drugs. So if you see the work which is going on at this moment is hydroxychloroquine, which is for the COVID thing. We are also doing work on azithromycin. Can it be used there? We are doing on HIV drugs like Lipnovi and Lipnovi. And then there's another drug of Gilead, which is remdesivir, which is being researched. And then there is one more drug, some of you may have heard, Ivectin, which was for animals, but now it is being explored whether it can be used for COVID thing. What we are trying to do is in COVID, there is a viral load which keeps on increasing and virus keeps on multiplying. So any drug which contains the multiplication of virus is helpful. And there are a number of drugs which are being examined. And I think this will be a major area of research. India can play a very important role going forward.
Thank you, sir. Now there is a question by Bhaskar Chakravarti that he is asking 3 A's: accessibility, availability,
The
and
third one is affordability. Affordability.
affordability. I think it was Dinesh ji had shared. Affordability is the third A.
Yes.
Soumitra is asking that from an all India perspective, what are the chances that the curve would again get steeper, given that the few states like West Bengal are not reporting the correct COVID cases? Also, if we can get some update on the ramp up of the indigenous kits developed by my labs.
Maybe Dr. Gupta should answer. SD Gupta can answer that question on curve.
Okay.
Dr. SD Gupta, sir.
If we need to understand this, there are always chances of a new peak, always, because this virus is not going to go. So we have to continuously social distance ourselves, continue to protect ourselves by hand washing and all that. It's very important. So more stringently we follow. This lockdown is imposed, and in fact we should lock down ourselves. This should be and this should be done by people and the community rather than government. If we now, what has happened in China? China is coming back. In South Korea, it's coming back. Why? Why is this happening? Because once you lax the preventive measures, then it's very likely you might have another wave. But if you, unless it comes to zero baseline, there is always a risk of resurgence of COVID. Now this is about this developed by my lab. I have been part of discussions, and this rapid test kits are being prepared now in India. ICMR is working on them, and some agencies have proposed to develop these kits. I believe they will do so, but it might take some time. So better what we have got from China and some other places, these rapid test kits in India, and it has started using those rapid test kits to prevent a new peak or new surge in the cases of COVID. But definitely indigenous labs should produce these kits. It should not be difficult. It's quite easy. India has also isolated virus and characterized the antigen and antibodies, so it should be easy for them to develop this kit.
So there is one
Next
more,
question.
which also is right to answer, that how will the Indian regulatory bodies are doing for promoting the clinical research regarding COVID-19? Last by Abhishek Gandhi.
So maybe I can add here, there is a fundamental change. Hello? Hello, can I
Sure, sir.
answer, Dr. Saab? So, DCGI of India, this is the first time after long years we have got permanent DCGI. And he has given clinical trial guidelines for India. And these guidelines were issued at the beginning of the year. And that will be helpful to promote research in this country. So overall, there is a responsiveness of Director DCGI Office, CDSCO, we call it, as far as the clinical research is concerned. And over the years, there is a lot of collaborative work which is happening in terms of clinical research in this country. In fact, I should say the international solidarity trial, which is going on chlorohydroxyquinoline, and India is part of it. India is one of the nodal center as far as that trial is concerned. So we'll see a lot of things happening as far as clinical research in India is concerned. So there is a regulatory simplification and there is a lot of participation. Maybe some of the questions which are related to medical representative call, Gauri, you can answer those questions. There are multiple questions on the call of a medical representative. Question number 8, medical representative call, how will it change? Question number 7, training course for medical representative. Gauri, if you can answer 7, 8 questions.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's very interesting once again the way pharma industry and the sales force has responded. So just to go to question number 7, what training course you would recommend for medical representative in the current context? So the single most thing every salesperson should do is a digital understanding. Learning from Italy, Spain, and some European as well as USA are very interesting. So what happened when everybody was working from home, when every sales representative was trying to reach out to doctor from home? What did they do? So initially it so happened that they tried to do exactly what one would do in a face-to-face meeting. So they started sending messages and somewhere they picked up the phone and they started talking to doctors and the doctors pushed them back. The reason was that they were talking something that was not relevant to doctors. So technology came to help in a big way. It so happened that because certain number of doctors who are not in the emergency room and were consulting from their residences were also getting little more time on reading and surfing on the net. Now today there is, and they were also posting comments on social media and things like that. Today there's a technology available to understand what is making this doctor really get interested. What are those areas, like oncologists for that matter, were searching more for obesity? Maybe they always wanted to know more and the link between the two. And when they had slightly more time on hand, they did that. So this information is available if you're digitally savvy, technologically savvy. So if this information gets fed into field force and a medical representative then starts talking to doctors on areas which are interesting to doctors, and then he combines the triad for better health outcomes, it's an ultimate win-win situation. So a medical representative probably has to do that. Also, AI is another learning. I don't know how whether a field force would need to right now get to AI, but AI is soon going to change the way we all interact with our patients and doctors. So if I go to the next question, is that how do we see pharma companies as small brands, because doctors community may not allow MR calls? Yes, I mean, everybody, all of us are getting some calls from some marketing people and we are denying them if they are not relevant to us, if they are not addressing the exact needs, and if they are not adding any value to those 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. So the fundamentally, the way brands are created and the way brands are promoted remain the same. We have to add value to those calls, and we even those small brands, in fact some of the small brands did interestingly very wonderful things and helped out doctors. They actually helped doctors to get on e-platform in last few 5 weeks in this country, because not every doctor is very comfortable. So various things tried out, and it really doesn't matter whether you're big or small. Maybe because the monies you may not need to spend very high in the beginning, just being relevant is very critical.
I think relevance and value addition is very, very, as very rightly pointed out by you. Gauri?
Sorry, sorry.
Okay, if I may just add to whatever you said, Dr. Chaudhary, in terms of question number 7 and in terms of question number 10. So as Dr. Chaudhary said, it's important for all the medical representatives to understand the digital platform through which sales can be done. Right? So there are lots of now platforms where you can actually not only convince the person but actually sell the product on the platform itself. So the doctor can actually choose from all your offerings and actually buy it over there, and a workflow actually does all the billing, right? So that is one part, and that is a fundamental course that everybody must go through. In addition to that, you must understand that selling online is a skill. So therefore, things like how do you do, and one of the most important things that medical representatives do to doctors is consultative selling. They understand the need, their patients, their environment, etc., and then they push a particular drug to them or a particular prescription, prescriptive drug to them. So how do you do consultative selling? How do you present? So presentation skills. How do you understand the basics of communicating? How do you influence? Okay, these are small little training modules that you should look forward to doing. Okay, and in terms of keeping yourself engaged, well, if you do all these programs, it is a sort of an engagement. But most important is that managers in most organizations should get into small groups and keep on talking to them, talking about these ways of selling, about creating a plan. So you have small little applications now. You have on apps, okay, and they allow you to control the entire sales process, starting from lead generation to talking to people, to selling the product online, to helps the manager to track your performance and productivity. I mean, it's a fantastic workflow. Pharma companies should think about acquiring those, okay, where it links not only the sales process but also to the supply chain, so that you know that you are selling something that's in stock, and so on and so forth. So this is something that I will highly recommend that industry experts, thought leaders like you who are on the panel should be talking to the pharma companies to acquire quickly and keep this huge sales force, very qualified sales force, engaged and updated and skilled.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one small thing to what Soumitra ji said, answering to Maulik particularly. Very interesting thing that came out in the past few weeks from Western countries is that face-to-face, which doctors were missing, the face-to-face interaction with medical representatives, which they were actually missing, and instead of getting text messages or emails, doctors in the Western world told the sales force that why don't you have face to face on a remote platform. So medical field force today, if is working from home, has a good chance to be relevant and have face to face interactions with doctor. At least in the Western world, doctors were delighted to see the field force coming and talking to them.
Okay, Sudarshan Jain here. So there were 3-4 questions which I wanted to address, and I wanted to address also Joy's question about jobs. So first, let me address the question of the pricing. 15 question by Nimesh. Yes, there is increase in the prices of APIs, but we should remember in India, it is not the API price which is controlled, it is the finished product pricing. And you can't take the price increase in India more than 10% for decontrol and in line with inflation. At this moment, the profitability is not the prime consideration for Indian industry, it is the availability of the products. So no price increase beyond what has been specified. So there may be hit in the profitability, but what we are saying, the leadership team of Indian industry is let the product be available and we will take care of the situation going by. So that is answer to question number 15. The answer to question number 14, Indian regulator, Indian Drug Controller General of India, he is the chair of the WHO Regulatory Council. So we are playing a very important role in regulatory harmonization to the word. We are not talking harmonization because harmonizing with what? We are talking of regulatory convergence, which takes care of the interest of all the countries, and there is going to be regulatory flexibility to meet the availability of the drugs. That is answer to the question of 14, Krishman Singh. Then there is question number 12, hydroxychloroquine. Yes, there are side effects, and that's why in all our communication, we have been saying don't take it on your own. It is only on doctor's prescription. The product is to be prescribed only as a prophylactic use for healthcare workers. You can't take it. And in treatment beyond lupus, malaria, and rheumatoid arthritis. So I will urge all of you present here, please spread the word. Don't take hydroxychloroquine on your own, because I've been getting a lot of requests. Everyone says that I should take it on my own. It has got a lot of side effects. So please, 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 I urge, don't take it on our own. That's the discussion we were having in the morning with the Drug Controller of India, that in every communication, let's reinforce this point. The last question which was there, 16 question, and the question on when COVID will get lifted, when this restriction will get lifted. 3rd May, you can't say at this particular moment whether it will be lifted on 3rd May. All of you have been reading Government of India's strategy that there will be red zone, green zone, or orange zone, and perhaps government will plan lifting the way it sees and calibrates the incidence of COVID. So let's leave it to the government. The last point, which is 16, what will be the job losses? Someone said that I'm a pharmacy student. I think in every adversity, there is a tremendous opportunity. And I will give the example of Tripura in South. Tripura is a great market for textiles, and they were having the products which they are making no demand. But they are the biggest supplier of masks in the world today. And they are coming with all kind of masks today. They become a home industry, designers masks, different kind of masks. So in every adversity, there is a tremendous opportunity. And what we need to do is look at the opportunity instead of adversity. I will quote Nelson Mandela, and maybe that's a favorite quote of mine. Let the choices in these kind of situations be governed by hopes and not fear. There is a tremendous opportunity. India is a country. There is a tremendous opportunity for students to make a difference. And we, despite all the issues, Indian Pharmaceutical Industry, IPA, which represent a top company, 60% of the market, 80% of exports, we think it is a great opportunity for Indian healthcare industry and IIHMR to play a leading role and be at the center stage of the world at this moment. And we can make difference to the world. Over to you, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was a great and very, very enlightening session by you and all the panelists. And thank you so much for extending even the time and answering all the questions of all the delegates. So I want to extend a very heartfelt thanks to you and all the panelists, our chairman, Dr. Gupta ji, Soumitra ji, Gauri ji, Dinesh ji, Saurabh ji, and also to our Dr. Agarwal ji, who has been always a great source of inspiration for us. So I believe that this webinar must have already given a great insight to all our listeners. And if there are any further questions or queries, we have a plan to organize one more workshop in the time to come, and we will keep you updated about it. So my heartfelt thanks to all of you once again. And so we generally over to you. He said that a lot of people will just like to finish the webinar by just clapping. So there's our way to express gratitude for all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pankaj Gupta.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all the panelists. So nice of you to
Thank you, sir.
come
Thank you
on
very much.
and speak. Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, would like to say any words? Andy, sir?
No,
Thank you very
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Really?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Sudarshan, sir.
Sir, and thanks for organizing this seminar. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks to you, Saurabh. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Saurabh.
Shomi, Banerjee, and Gauri. Thank you so much.